This week, Jack Anderson Confidential continues its shocking expose on how federal rent-a-cops criminally misuse firearms, peddle dope, and practice outright brutality.
She pushed me and started striking me with a nightstick.
And a case of arson in suburban Washington has provoked local and international repercussions because it's the house of General Assad, head of Syria's feared secret police. Get all the exciting details on Jack Anderson Confidential.
Have you seen any drugs?
Yes.
What kind?
Marijuana, black beauties, lovely, cocaine.
In the next 30 minutes, an investigation into violent crime and dope peddling by guards in federal buildings.
Here it's a little different. You have natural hatreds. It comes out in different ways when you have unemployment, when you have second-class minds running first-class countries.
And a shocking resurgence of bigotry in this country.
We estimated the excess of costs not in the millions, but in the billions.
And how defense contractors are becoming fat at taxpayers' expense. These stories coming up next on Jack Anderson Confidential. Now from Washington, here is Jack Anderson.
The unemployment story has been told in statistics, but I've tried to look behind the statistics. I sent reporters into some of the nation's most depressed communities to talk to the chronically unemployed. We found people turning desperate. On Chicago's South Side, an unemployed steelworker named Jim Glover asked us to deliver a message to President Reagan.
All I can see is you doing is giving the upper class, the person that's making $80,000, $90,000 a year, more tax breaks, where you are killing the individual that is making no less than $50,000. What do you intend to do for him? Because as I see it right now, you intend to do nothing but kill him. And I do not intend to die.
When people become desperate, the social order begins to break down. Many lose hope and turn to crime. Men and women who can't find work steal to survive, or they hustle drugs. In South Dallas, crime has become so routine that my camera crew didn't have to look for it. This scene was not staged. It's just an everyday event that happened while the camera crew was passing by. Others talk of rebellion. Bill Stoner is a tough black activist. Here's his ominous message.
People, when they feel that they've got their backs up against the wall, they don't come out fighting just like you see happening in El Salvador right now. I think you're going to see an urban warfare on a large scale in this country.
What you have seen and heard could happen anywhere in America where the people are desperate. Later, I'll report on another evil that has been exacerbated by unemployment: bigotry. Next, murder, rape, dope peddling in federal buildings. I'll report on this when I return.
Denture wearers speak out about denture adhesives.
Hate them all.
I love mine.
What? Pastes are gooey and powders are gritty.
Not my adhesive. I use Liquid Dentrol, the first liquid denture adhesive.
A liquid?
You bet. Dentrol is smooth without all that goo and grit, and it flows on in a thin stream that holds so comfortably you almost forget you're wearing dentures. Now what do you have to say?
I'm in love with Liquid Dentrol denture adhesive.
For a comfortable hold.
Federal buildings ought to be the safest places in Washington. They're patrolled by armed guards. Employees must carry identification cards. Visitors are required to sign in. But the aura of security is deceptive. Deep in the granite and sandstone compounds of government, throughout most federal departments and agencies, crime is on the rampage. Dangerous crimes, rapes, robberies, muggings, and even murders 1 every 2 months. How can so much crime go on under the noses of uniformed guards? The answer is frightening. Some of the most serious crimes have been committed by the guards themselves. That's right, armed guards have committed the crimes they were hired to guard against. Most of them have been contract employees. I call them rent-a-cops. They work for private security companies. They shouldn't be confused with career officers of the Federal Protective Service. And as their numbers have risen, so has the crime rate. This chart shows the difference in the crime rates in the buildings guarded by the rent-a-cops and those guarded by federal protective officers. The difference is appalling. My associate Indy Badwar confronted the General Service Administration's top officials. Ray Klein is the deputy administrator. Charles Cobb runs the Federal Protective Service.
Are you aware of any criminal activity by the contract guards themselves?
That they were contract guards that were involved?
That the contract guards themselves have been involved in any kind of crimes like dopes or helping out with larcenies or...
I don't know of any specifics of that at all, no.
Mr. Klein?
Nothing comes to mind right now. I don't know if the record has anything that or not.
There have been vague...
It's hard to swallow that Cobb and Klein were blithely unaware of any criminal activity by the rent-a-cops their agency is hired to protect federal buildings. Just the week before this issue was raised, there was an incident in the Justice Department. Detective Leonard Hernandez arrested a contract guard who had shot himself up with heroin in a bathroom right in the center of federal law enforcement. An isolated incident? Unhappily, it wasn't. Dope is peddled regularly in the corridors of power. The day after the interview, another rent-a-cop overdosed on heroin in a federal building 2 blocks from the White House. This woman is a rent-a-cop on duty in a federal building. For her own protection, I agreed to conceal her identity during her interview by my associate.
Have you seen any drunkenness on the job?
Oh, yeah.
A lot?
Yes.
Have you seen any drugs?
Yes.
What kind?
Marijuana, black beauties, lovely, cocaine.
Where are most of these used?
The gym, bathroom, and garage.
Do you know if any of these guards actually sell these drugs, that they're peddling them either amongst themselves or to the public?
Yes.
Both?
Yes.
So there is an underworld there?
Definitely.
Now I want you to listen to a conversation with another rent-a-cop who didn't know she was being taped by a hidden camera. She too is entitled to protection because she's in no way implicated in any criminality. In this conversation, a federal officer is trying to make a bust by asking her to arrange a purchase of narcotics from another rent-a-cop who's suspected of being a drug dealer.
If he's dealing like in coke, you can get a quarter, you know, depending on how much he's selling it for. I think it's selling for about $45, $35 to $45, something like that. Half a quarter usually go for about $15, but find out his price. Okay, if you're gonna find out his price at least by Friday. Okay.
Officer James Hinnant is a federal protective officer, specially trained, highly skilled, with more than a decade of experience. He has arrested literally dozens of rent-a-cops for criminal violations.
How widespread is the problem of crime within federal buildings? Crime committed by the guards who are supposed to guard these buildings?
It's very widespread. For instance, the Environmental Protection Agency, we had a guard that shot and killed his co-worker. We had another young lady that was employed at the U.S. Customs Building, was a fugitive from justice. We had another individual that was working at the Federal Trade Commission, was robbed of his weapon. We had another individual that was working at the Naturalization Services, and they had the Department of Justice in there also. He was found in the men room with a syringe in his arm. He was passed out. So they're not just isolated incidents. There are many of them. I could go on and on.
What's the cause of this?
I would say training. The agency, contract agencies, bidding low on the contract to get the contract from the federal government. And once they get their contract, they have to fill so many posts within the building, so many entrances at that building. And what they're really looking at is how quick they can fill those positions, or they will hire anybody.
Did you ever warn anybody about increasing crime?
Sure. For instance, we've warned the secretary of various agencies. We've talked to the administrator of GSA. We've talked to our officials, Federal Protective Service police officials, to ask them to help us, which we didn't get any help from them at all.
Hinnant belongs to a diminishing species. He's one of the few professional law enforcement officers who still guard government buildings. Their numbers have declined from 6,000 to no more than 2,000 coast to coast. The number of rent-a-cops, of course, has accelerated. Remember those officials who said they were unaware of any criminal activity by their rent-a-cops? The same officials told us they're quite satisfied with the training that the rent-a-cops receive.
You think it's sufficient with someone with 8 hours training to be wearing a gun in a federal building?
If they are qualified, it doesn't make any difference. If they've passed the test, and they can, yes, it is.
But not all the guards agree.
Do you think the weapons training is adequate?
No. I've never handled a gun before in my life. Matter of fact, when they was teaching me how to close the hammer on the gun while the chamber was loaded, me and my finger went through an ordeal.
You qualified in a day?
Yes.
25 rounds?
Yes.
How dangerous is it for the public, I'm saying?
It's very dangerous. It's very dangerous.
If you get into a situation where your life or the public's life is in danger, what would you do then?
Go.
You would just leave?
Leave. Find the first exit and just go.
This story will continue next week with police officials openly disagreeing with Mr. Cobb. And I'll tell you of shootouts, assaults, and missing weapons in federal buildings. When I return, a frightening look at growing anti-Semitism and the unknown side of cosmetics czar Vidal Sassoon.
Are there nights you can't sleep because you take your job to bed?
I'm behind schedule.
Introducing a sleep aid for the 80s, new Nitol. With DPH, it's fast and safe when used as directed. New Nitol helps make you drowsy, so you can fall asleep fast. When you take your job to bed,
I'll never make my quota.
reach for new Nitol with DPH and fall asleep fast. New Nitol with DPH, a sleep aid for the 80s.
Paladin presents Martha Ray, comedienne, denture wearer.
Getting that big laugh takes something extra. And getting my denture sparkling clean takes something extra. Extra strength Polident Green. Watch, tough lab stains. Now, extra strength Polident. It's fantastic. Gets tough stains clean, even in between. So take it from a big mouth. Extra strength Polident Green gets tough stains clean.
Morning. You know, I used to think when you reached a certain point in business, you could relax. But these days, in this economy, with all the bright young people coming up, with competition the way it is, I can't take it easy. I still start every day early, and I still start it with the Wall Street Journal. The Journal tells me every